It's round one of the presidential debates on America this week.
The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie.
Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
It was very clear right out of the gate that President Trump was debating two people.
White House trade advisor Peter Navarro is here. I'm also talking one-on-one with Congressman Kevin McCarthy. Also on tonight's show, Carrie Severino, the president of the Judicial Crisis Network, and the president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, Mike Solan. Plus, you don't want to miss my interview with my former colleague and good friend, Megyn Kelly.
Because you know I'm going to give it to you straight, and I've never been in the bag for anybody.
That and so much more.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, right now in America this week. Welcome to America This Week. Election Day is now a month away, and considering how long 2020 has felt, the end of this political nightmare is finally in sight. The first presidential debate finally happened, and the gloves were definitely off. Tonight, we've got a full breakdown on the big moments, the low points, and everything in between. The first presidential debate was a doozy, folks. Millions of Americans tuned in to see the face-off between a brawler and a sweet-talking grandfather type. Trump has been on that stage before. In 2016, Trump surprised everyone by going toe-to-toe with Hillary Clinton. He pulled no punches, even though some would call him a bully for taking big shots at his female opponent.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
The American people, the liberal-leaning media, and this host were watching for signs of Biden's mental capacity. The challenger has some well-documented real problems with numbers, and I don't mean math. I mean understanding the numbers coming out of his mouth.
6,344,700.
I'm not making fun of Mr. Biden. I'm very concerned he may not be qualified to make life and death decisions for America. Now, that said, with the first debate behind us, much analysis has been offered. I think there were a few moments that were very material to the American voter when we go to the polls to elect the man to the office of the most powerful person on the planet. Trump pushed Biden to answer a very important question. Will Biden and the Dems pack the Supreme Court?
Now,
gonna pack the
make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
You want to put a lot of new Supreme Court justices, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is?
The reason this comment is so important isn't the way Biden got rattled to the point where he yelled, "Shut up, man." It matters because the perception that Democrats will change the Supreme Court if they win is very concerning to conservative voters. That idea alone will drive single-issue voters to the polls. Law and order was certainly bringing the heat, the emotion. Again, I think this is a topic Trump should own, given the rioting, looting, and chaos our cities have been exposed to, and Trump scored some big points on law and order.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
true.
Almost
that's
nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you.
I think the campaign should continue to hover over this topic. Watch Biden defend the riotous and murderous Antifa.
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you gotta be
not
kidding.
militia.
Trump was scoring big points. Then moderator Chris Wallace asked Trump whether he condemned white supremacists. Trump delivered a self-inflicted blow to the jaw.
Give me a name. Give me a
White
name.
supremacists and
Who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing. This is a left-wing problem.
It just doesn't make any sense to me why Trump wasn't prepped for that question. A simple yes, I denounce white supremacist groups. Move on. But in the end, after 94 minutes of interrupting, sound bites, and admittedly mistakes on both sides, I think Trump was the winner in the first debate. And there's a simple explanation. Biden has no sparring partners. He's used to going into the ring and getting no pushback. He goes on liberal news talk shows, takes no questions, or chats with Cardi B. Meanwhile, Trump is versed in the defense of his own comments. Biden, on the other hand, has experienced the real-time fact check for the first time this campaign. Look, not everyone liked the first debate as much as me. I get it. But rather than watching these debates to decide who wins, watch them for the idea of who you want to represent us on the world stage going forward, a very hostile world stage. Trump is a street fighter. I prefer the street fighter to the sweet old man type. I don't know, call me crazy. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea may disagree with me. The question remains, will Team Biden be able to teach their guy the art of the counterpunch in time for debate number 2 in 2 weeks? By the way, next week I get the chance to ask President Trump a lot of those questions. I'm sitting down with him for a full-hour town hall, my 8th interview of the commander-in-chief. Politics is blood sport, folks. Just look no further than these debates. Candidates lob haymakers, land blows, get bloodied, lumped up, and have to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and do it again, and again, and again. It's not for the weak-kneed nor the snowflake crowd, but it is interesting. And if you're a political junkie like me, you can't pull your eyes away from the chaos of the American presidential elections. As always, I suggest you stay tuned to this show. We'll bring you all the extraordinary highlights every chance we get. Advisor Peter Navarro up here. Thank you for joining us. You know, I watched the debate this week, and I heard Vice President Biden called his commander-in-chief derisively a clown, a racist, and told him to shut up. As a U.S. trade advisor, what does that do to you when you go try and negotiate with foreign countries? Let's say Russia, let's say China, let's say even hostile countries in the Middle East.
Nothing, because all of those leaders have met Joe Biden. They know he is the real clown. So I don't really worry about that. The debate for me was interesting. The first thing, it was very clear right out of the gate that President Trump was debating 2 people. You know the boxing term cut man. Chris Wallace effectively was Joe Biden's cut man, as well as the other stealth debater. I thought that performance, I mean, he needs to finally drop the act at Fox and go over to MSNBC, where he'll be most welcome. But, I mean, if you listen to the signal rather than drown out the noise of that debate, there was very clear policy differences between the 2 candidates that actually got out if you listen to that signal. I mean, for example, the Supreme Court, very clearly, President Trump has both the constitutional authority and moral responsibility to nominate a justice. He did that. Biden refuses to provide any kind of list of who he would nominate, so that was pretty clear. On the China virus issue, you draw the 2 candidates. President Trump really called Biden out on his failure with H1N1 in 2009. Biden's own chief of staff said they made every mistake in the book. And also, President Trump noted that Biden would have not pulled down those China flights on January 31st. That saved millions of American lives when the president did, and Biden called him a xenophobe. So that was clear. We got Biden flushed out on the Green New Deal and the $100 trillion that it's going to cost us. I mean, we saw that fairly clearly. On race relations, it's interesting to me that the president noted back in the 90s how Joe Biden was responsible for a legislation that incarcerated black men, and President Trump was the one who passed the reform bill. And the funnest thing, Eric, the poll this morning, or the poll I saw about the debate, Telemundo had it 2-to-1 Trump, and that's a key demographic for the president. So I think the debate was a good night for the president, a bad night for Chris Wallace, and a horrible night for Sleepy Joe. You
know, Peter, let's talk about that race exchange for a while. They hovered over the topic. It was about law and order. I think President Trump was landing some solid blows on Vice President Biden for a while. And then Biden said something like, Antifa is an ideology, not a group. That created a lot of, Twitter commotion. And Wallace stepped in and asked President Trump if he was ready to denounce white supremacists. And Trump said something like, Proud Boys, step back and watch, rather than denouncing them. You know, it felt to me like there was an opportunity for President Trump to step up and denounce the white supremacists, but he didn't. So what's the, you know, you're on the grounds of the White House right there. What's the scuttlebutt about that?
See, I see that totally different. I thought that Chris Wallace did a tremendous disservice at that point, because what he did was he asked him the question, and then President Trump right off the bat said that he didn't approve of that, but Wallace interrupted him before he could even get that out of his mouth and just kept hectoring him and coming back. So I thought that was, I thought that exchange was one of the most unfair of Wallace. The president has made clear his views on that. And the other was, you know, when they came up for the topic of the economy, what did Wallace do? He slips in the question about the president's tax returns. It had nothing to do with the subject at all. And, you know, if Wallace had then also confronted Biden, for example, on Hunter Biden, maybe that would have been okay. But look, at the end of the day, we saw a dominant president and a befuddled former vice president go at it. I think that it was unfortunate that Wallace was sitting at that table. I think it would have been a very different debate if we had somebody there who was fair and balanced.
Do you think Chris
like
Wallace?
Fox News,
do you think Chris Wallace was biased in favor of Vice President Biden?
Oh, are you kidding me? Yes. I mean, the interruptions, I think it's 76-15, Trump versus Biden. But it was just, you know what a cut man is, Eric?
I do.
That's the guy when
I do.
Yeah, I mean,
I do.
Chris Wallace was Joe Biden's cut man, and Joe Biden was getting cut all night. And every time the president threw a punch that caught him right in the jaw, Wallace was there to intercept the punch or to lessen the blow or to heal the cut. I mean, it was, look, I knew going in that this would be tough, because Wallace was going to be the second debater. And I think Wallace, kind of the Freudian slip there was when he talked about exchanging places on the stage with the president, because Wallace has always had those kind of political ambitions. Right. I mean, he belongs over at MSNBC. That's kind of his ideology. All right,
we're gonna leave it there, Peter. We're gonna bring you back next time. I want to talk about some of the things of the economy that they brought up. Very little time of the 94 minutes was on the economy. Maybe after the next debate, we'll bring you back and talk about that. White House Trade Advisor Peter Navarro, thank you. Now let's go to House Republican leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Congressman, this week in the debate, one of the big issues was, will the Democrats try to stack the court if they win the Senate and win the White House? It was a big debate issue. Speaker Pelosi has said the same thing. Sir, it strikes me as that would be a bad idea to be talking about that in front of an election. You may just inspire those base voters who want to get out and make sure that doesn't happen. Your thoughts?
Well, that would be a terrible thing to do. The American public doesn't support it. But it again, to show the Democrats want their own rules. I mean, from stacking the court to change the electoral system to making Washington, D.C. a state. It's all about gaming the system because they cannot win when it's a fair process. And that's what, when we talk about destroying America, are dismantling it. Think about what they just wasted their majority on: impeachment, just because they didn't like the outcome of an election. Now, because the Supreme Court, the president is doing what the Constitution says he should do about naming some of the Supreme Court. That's what Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually said. A president is there for 4 years. They now not only talk about impeachment, the Speaker does, but now the members in the House and the Senate, the Democrats, that they want to stack the court if he follows the Constitution. That's what's appalling to me, and that's what we really talk about when they want to dismantle this nation.
You know, sir, Speaker Pelosi, there's been rumored maybe a little bit of unrest on the Democrats in the House, and you're right there. You have your ear to the stone, so to speak. Is there a chance that she might be replaced as Speaker of the House, even if the Democrats win in 2020?
Remember, there are a number of people that voted against her. Just this week, we saw more than 23 Democrats sign a letter that they would sign a Republican discharge petition to allow a bill to come to the floor that would help small businesses, the PPP program. You know, Speaker Pelosi has been holding up getting anything done from COVID relief for the American public. She continues to try to push a bill that mentions cannabis more than it mentions jobs, and it's really harming the nation, more for a political purpose than anything else. And now her own members that she's sacrificing in this campaign are really concerned by that. And it would only take a few more to what really topple her and have a new speaker in the House.
You know, one of the other big issues at the debate this week was the Green New Deal, and you know, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is kind of behind the push for that. President Trump said to Vice President Biden, he said you just lost the far left when he pushed back against the Green New Deal. What are your thoughts on the far left portion of the House that you are, again, leader of the minority in the House? What are your thoughts of that other group?
Well, remember what Joe Biden said, that he is the Democratic Party. Well, what Joe Biden is that, or what Democratic Party is that? Because Barack Obama says Joe Biden, there's no difference between him and Bernie Sanders, who's identified himself as a socialist. And what Joe Biden has done, he's pretty much sacrificed the party to the socialists. He's let AOC write the environmental plan. He says there's no fracking. Now he says there could be. He supports the Green New Deal. Now he says there's a different one. It still harms the country as we know it. And I'm not quite sure which Joe Biden is showing up or which one he remembers of what he said before.
You know, the House, so our audience understands, the House, the Congress is the one who writes the check. So tell us where we stand with, you know, Congressman, you know, I'm a libertarian, I'm a conservatarian, let's call it that, and I hate big, massive government spending, but, you know, we're doing it again. We're doing exactly what we pointed the finger at the Obama administration for doing, spending wantonly, doubling our debt, national debt, in the span of 8 years. Are we not doing the same thing? Are we not leading ourselves down that debt bomb, same thing that we accuse the left of doing over the last 8 years?
Well, it's one of the concerns we have, and in our commitment to America, this is where we lay out that we would actually balance our budget. But you know the real concern I have, when Republicans were in the majority for those 8 years, when Nancy Pelosi had to hand the gavel to Boehner and I handed it back, you know that discretionary spending that Congress has control over? In those 8 years, it never went up, it actually went down. In less than 6 months of the Democrat majority, they increased it. They added more spending. And what they've been able to do is they haven't even produced a budget. One of the fundamental things you should do as a majority party. How can you ever balance the budget if you can't even produce one? The Democrats won't even produce one. And that's a real concern I have for future generations, the amount of debt we're incurring. Now, there is spending going on, some that I would support. Much of what has happened within COVID, that we helped those small businesses. Where did that money go to? That money went to keep them open, to pay their rent, but to pay the employees. The resources to make sure people who are unemployed to have that bridge to go forward, that we don't create a financial hardship within the banks and others.
All right. You know,
what we really need to do is get the country working again. And that's why in the Commitment to America, we have pledged 10 million new jobs in the next year.
That's it. And I think that is the case here. We got to get the country moving again. I'm concerned when the government largesse stops, what happens? Is there another shoe to drop? Again, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Congressman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
The president's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, has been getting some heavy criticism from the left. Now let's go to Carrie Severino, the president of the Judicial Crisis Network. You're a Supreme Court watcher. Carrie, just tell us what to expect from these upcoming Senate hearings.
Yeah, you know, luckily it's not something that's open to the public because of COVID. So hopefully we don't have the kinds of Code Pink-like protesters we had during the Kavanaugh confirmation, where literally hundreds of people had to be arrested for disrupting the hearings. The disruptions I would worry about are going to be coming from the senators themselves. We know that during the Kavanaugh hearings, they were interrupting each other, interrupting the Republicans on the committee. I'm hoping they can contain themselves this time. I'm hoping they can step away from where Senator Feinstein and Senator Durbin went during her confirmation to the appellate court, which was going straight for her religion and trying to accuse her of being Catholic, effectively. It's a violating Constitution's rule against religious tests for office. I think you're going to see people trying to pin her down, maybe on both sides of the aisle, on making statements about promising how she would rule on a specific case. She can't do that. That violates judicial ethics. And like Justice Ginsburg said, no hints, no forecasts, no previews. Ginsburg didn't answer dozens of questions about how she'd rule in specific cases. We're going to see that from Barrett as well. That has to do with judicial ethics rules. But you know what? I think it's going to be exciting for the American people to see her. She's really poised and articulate. And I think it's going to be a wonderful view of really our next Supreme Court justice.
Carrie, given the makeup of the court, assuming she does get seated, so many people ask me, is Roe v. Wade at risk? What say you?
Well, look, that is not an issue that's before the court right now, and it's not something that Amy Coney Barrett actually has a clear record on, which is not surprising. It's not something that has come before her as a judge yet. So I think the left likes to use this as a scaremongering technique, but it's something that I think you'd have to, on top of which, you'd have to get 5 votes on the court to do anything. I think much more likely as we see the court continuing as it is, taking each small question in this area of the law at a time.
I think one of the other big issues is gun rights. I think Amy Coney Barrett is a pro-Second Amendment advocate, yeah?
She's not an advocate, but she does have some great opinions on Second Amendment cases. The one that comes to mind for me had to do with a felon in possession of a gun. And this case she dissented in, but she said, actually, when you look at the original history, you can't just remove someone's Second Amendment rights simply because they committed a felony. In that case, it had to do with Medicaid fraud because he was improperly advertising his shoe inserts as approved under Medicaid. I mean, this is so nonviolent, it's hard to imagine something more benign. So she said you could actually potentially remove someone's gun rights if they were shown to be dangerous, even if they weren't a felon. But just saying automatically if you're a felon, you're necessarily dangerous, that doesn't comport with the history of that understanding the Second Amendment.
About 20 seconds or so, what are the odds of Amy Coney Barrett actually getting seated prior to the election?
I think we're on track to have a vote before the election. So I think we could definitely see her on the court, which would be great for all those cases that may come down with election law in them right after the election.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Carrie Severino, thank you very much for your time. Again, with I believe she's 48 years old, 48-year-old Amy Coney Barrett, that could be a conservative Supreme Court for a very, very long time. Carrie, thank you. Nearly 100 officers and $3 million are on the chopping block at Seattle's police department. And on top of that, the city has now hired a street czar for $150,000 a year, who just happens to be a former pimp. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. Let's bring in Mike Solan, the president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild. Mike, we'll get to the pimp street czar in a second, but with these cities selling out their police departments, Seattle, are they having seller's remorse?
I believe so, and the remorse is going to be put on the populace of Seattle. They're the ones who are going to be bearing the brunt of this nonsense, and sadly, crime is spiking, and officers are fleeing for other jurisdictions where they feel supported. And I think at this point next year, we could lose a significant number of officers. Therefore, I think the public safety situation is really, really significant here in the city of Seattle as far as being really bad.
Now, do we get this right? A former pimp is now a street czar, and what's that all about?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And what it shows is that unreasonable activism is taking hold, not just in the city of Seattle, but that same type of activism is plaguing our entire state. That same individual also ran a campaign where he pledged to go to war with the cops because his brother was tragically taken by the Seattle Police Department as far as the tragic death. And now we're looking at an initiative called 940, which was passed about a year and a half ago, which changes the deadly force language for the police officers, making it more easily ready to politically prosecute for police officers for tragically having to make that split-second human decision to take someone's life in the service of their duties to protect our cities. And now it shows you where we are in the height of hypocrisy when this individual is now being paid by the taxpayers to be a street czar, where he went to trafficking women across interstate lines did federal time, and then now he's the one that's going to vet what's appropriate for the streets.
Yeah, it's amazing, Mike, and only about a minute or so. And we talked about it before, but that split-second delay in a decision on what type of force to use is deadly to police officers. Explain it.
Well, absolutely it is. At least a 5 to 10 second viral video clips where people judge officers with zero context of why we do certain things. And that's the problem. That's where I think police really need to step up their game to explain our actions, be proactive, so we can change some of the media perspective that I think is using these video clips to drive advertising dollars, but also letting people that are anti-police drive a further anti-police message, which divides our communities more so at a time when we need unity. That's why police departments and particularly police unions need to get ahead of the game, get organized to explain, not exonerate. The system will exonerate the officers at the end of the day, and where they need to be held accountable, I certainly have confidence that they will be held accountable, but those are very rare. And all these issues surrounding police and deadly force, it's mostly based on a false narrative. Police are not racist. We're great people, and sadly our profession, that historic profession, is being used politically to further political votes. Absolutely unconscionable.
I'm going to have to leave it there, Mike Solan. Appreciate your time. Again, those mayors of these liberal cities need to get behind their police officers. Thank you, Mike Solan.
Thank you, sir.
Ahead on America This Week, my good friend Megyn Kelly is back. Trust me, you won't want to miss this interview. And next Friday, October 9th, I'll be hosting an America This Week town hall with none other than President Donald J. Trump. The one-hour event in Miami will cover all the important topics and focus on the key battleground states. Check your Sinclair station's website for details. America This Week has also made the same offer to Joe Biden. We're still waiting to hear if his campaign accepts. So far, just crickets.
America, one nation, from Florida to St. Louis to Seattle. America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, delivers facts, not falsehoods.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to clear some of it up.
Hard-edged opinions.
We can no longer rely on China to be the primary producer of so many critical products that we need at a time of crisis.
Tough topic debates.
Has the mainstream media vetted Joe Biden the way they vetted others on the right?
I just believe that all women have the right to speak their truth and that those truths should also be investigated. The end, regardless of what political party they are a part of.
America This Week reveals the topics and issues that pulse throughout America. Fighting COVID-19.
We're working with every single state to be able to detect outbreaks before they spread into the community.
And the path forward.
Getting back to some degree of normality, that will come. We will get over this.
America This Week investigates chaos at the southern border.
Go, 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 go.
The poisoning of America.
It's in the soils, it's in the water, and it's in our blood.
Toxic chemicals linked to multiple cancers found in towns across America.
We were poisoned, and we are still poisoned.
Almost every day, there is a new community that is finding out that their water is contaminated.
America This Week relentlessly seeks the truth on your behalf.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week. Let's get right to the interview. This week, she launched her new podcast, The Megyn Kelly Show. My friend and former colleague, Megyn Kelly, huge congratulations and welcome back, Megyn. Megyn Kelly is back in business, folks. There it is, her podcast, The Megyn Kelly Show. Megyn, terrific. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
All right, so let our control room roll. What I found of the debate this week with the two low points, each candidate scored, and I was following your Twitter, and we were tweeting back and forth, but there were a couple of obvious low points for both. Let's have our control room roll back-to-back. Listen.
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia.
Give me a name. Give me a
White
name.
supremacists and
Who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing. This is a left-wing problem.
So, Megyn, in the span of 1 hour, the man who's the president of the United States and the man who wants to be president of the United States brought up Antifa and Proud Boys, almost defending both of them. Your thoughts?
It's a no-brainer. I mean, how could they miss those, right? Like, what political capital is there? Is the Proud Boy contingency so great that Trump can't just come out and say, obviously I condemn them. I don't like white supremacists and I don't need or want their vote. So that was easy. And Antifa, like, I realize they're saying, oh, Biden was quoting Chris Wray, the FBI director. That is a very short and partial quote. And as soon as he said it, he came out and clarified that it's a very dangerous group that's getting more organized at the state and regional, local levels. And on he went. So, like, to sort of be, oh, it's just this idea. It's like an idea that maybe one day we'll have an anti-fascist group that goes out there and fights for goodness. No, bull. They are out there on the streets causing hell. They've shot police officers. So the problem on both sides on some of this stuff, Eric, is that Trump is not always the most effective messenger for his cause. And neither, for that matter, is Biden. You know, it's like, remember when Romney and Barack Obama went at it, and they weren't everybody's favorite, but they were really articulate and they could really land their arguments. And then you decided if you were persuaded. On these, you're like, Trump, just mention, like, when you started talking about critical race theory, it was like, just explain what it is. Tell them what's in it. Tell them what's being shoved down the throats of people all over the federal government, and then they'll be with you. But instead, he's like, it was terrible. So I got frustrated watching it.
So I think a lot of people were frustrated, and with one of our former colleagues, Chris Wallace. It has got to be a difficult, and you've done this. You've been the debate moderator, and you've done this. How do you handle a situation where you have one candidate that won't stop and the other one that, frankly, gets lost in the shuffle sometimes? How do you handle that as a debate moderator?
I think, look, he faced an enormous challenge that we really haven't seen in any recent presidential debate, as far as I can remember. So I understand that dynamic, but I think, and frankly, I don't know whether the Commission on Presidential Debates controlled this aspect or whether he controlled this aspect, but I would have said, I'm in control of the microphones and I'm in control of the camera. And when those two guys are talking over each other, and you can see me trying to get in control room, you put me on cam, and if I tell you to cut the mics, you cut the mics. You don't have to do it one time. You look like a jerk if you kept doing it. You did it one time, you sit back, let them go off, stay silent. When everybody realizes you're not saying anything, look at them and say, you done? Because your mic wasn't on and the camera was on me and no one heard you. And that's how it's going to go if you continue interrupting each other.
Yeah, and I remember you were masterful at that. You just commanded the attention of not only the audience, but also the people on stage as well. Megyn, let's turn a little bit to the other topic du jour right now, going into the last 4 or 5 weeks before the election. Supreme Court nominee, ACB, Amy Coney Barrett. How did this become a political football, and who wins this political football game?
Well, I mean, I think, having practiced law and having covered the Supreme Court for a number of years, the Democrats started it. You know, not to sound like a child, but they did start it. They started it with Robert Bork. It used to be back in the day of Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they would get confirmed 98-2 or 98-0 if somebody skipped out that day. As long as you were a reasonable jurist, somebody who got a good rating as a jurist on the bench, you would get approved. And then with Robert Bork, the Democrats changed it to, you know, you're just too conservative. Well, that's too bad. The Republic had understood prior to that you elect a Republican president, you're going to get conservative appointees and vice versa. They changed it with Bork, and then Miguel Estrada was a Republican's nominee to go up on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, a great lawyer, and the Democrats would not give the guy a hearing for 2 years because they were afraid of him. He was this spectacular lawyer, Hispanic guy. They could see him going up to the Supreme Court, and so they basically killed his nomination. Then the Republicans got into control. They started to not vote on Obama's lower court judges. Then they went back and so on, back and forth, right? The Harry Reid got rid of the filibuster because Republicans were doing that. And then the Republicans got rid of the filibuster at the Supreme Court level. So bottom line, no one cares now. No one cares. They fight dirty. They're guilty. The Dems started it, so no one has sympathy for them. And I think the Republicans are probably playing this exactly the right way. Push it through, get it done. She's getting on the bench.
And what about the Democrats saying, well, if that does happen and we do win the White House and the Senate back, we're going to stack the court. We're going to keep changing the math until whoever's in power has the Supreme Court. You were there. You were at the Supreme Court. Can they do that? Is this good? First of all, I know it's not good for America, not good for the Supreme Court, but what are the odds of doing something like that?
There's no way they're going to do it. Call their bluff. Call their bluff. There's zero. Let me make clear, Eric, if they do that, they've killed the U.S. Supreme Court. It's over. It's no longer a functioning body. No one will have faith in it because, it's just a bunch of partisans who have been put on there to enact whatever president's agenda. I mean, it basically gets rid of a third branch of government, or at least the court at the top of the third branch of government. So there's no way they'll follow through with that. The Democrats know the Republicans have them. And why on earth would they? The reason Joe Biden wouldn't answer that last night is because why on earth would he rattle a cage he doesn't need to rattle when he's ahead in this race? I think she's going to get on the bench and they're going to forget about it and they're going to hope for an early Clarence Thomas retirement.
Okay, I saved about a minute and a half because I want to talk about you. How are you doing? You're back in the game. How does it feel?
It feels great. I love being my own boss. I named the company Devil May Care Media because the full saying is the devil may care, but I do not. And that is how I feel right now. I am sick of being told what I can and cannot say, like most Americans. I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm going to have the discussions I want to have, and I'm going to have them the way I want. I'm going to use the language I want. And no one is around to tell me, no, you have to say it this way, or if you say it that way, you're bad. Or even when it comes to Trump, I'm going to cover him fairly. If I want to criticize him, I will. And if I want to defend him, I will. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen to me. But hopefully you will listen to me because I'm going to give it to you straight. And I've never been in the bag for anybody. So anyway, I like being my own boss and not having to respond to the corporate overlords anymore, Eric.
I know those people. I know exactly. I've heard of those people. I've seen those people. I've been with them. Very quickly before we go, what are your thoughts of Donald Trump?
I mean, look, I think he's probably, in the views of Republicans, the right warrior in a controversial package. Most of the Republicans I know don't love the mean tweets and sort of the weird, why are we talking about whether Joe Scarborough murdered an intern where there's no evidence, right? What? Why did we spend 3 days on that? But this is the package the fighter they wanted comes in. The guy who will just bust up all convention when it comes to a debate and interrupt nonstop is the same guy who will just, not listen to anything he's being told about. Well, you can't drop that bomb in the Middle East, and he'll just do it. And then the next thing you know, he'll pull troops out of Syria and everybody will hate it, but it'll be okay. I think they're with him. But I think his biggest downside is his style. People can't see past it. And I think that's where he's getting into trouble right now. Suburban women, some of the seniors who have gotten a little tired of the Trump show, and he might do well to just read it back a little.
Yep. All right, Megyn, I agree with you about the Scarborough stuff. He's actually a friend of mine, contrary to what my audience may believe, but Joe's a good man, and yeah, there's none of that stuff going on with that murder crap. All right, let's move on. Megyn, we're going to say thank you so much. Your podcast is called The Megyn Kelly Show, and it's available right now on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Megyn is back, folks. Megyn Kelly, thank you so much. Coming up next, our panel breaks down the big moments, the wins and the busts from the first presidential debate. For the last few weeks, I've asked for your help in fighting the opioid epidemic. I'm continuing to work with the U.S. Office of Drug Policy and have taken you to the front lines of the battle, exposing the drug cartels who make billions of dollars poisoning our children. I've shown you how they bring in drugs by land, sea, sky, and even mail. I've also introduced you to the boots on the ground, the men, the women, and the canines whose tireless efforts help keep those drugs from entering the U.S. And that fight can't continue without your help. So please make a donation to the Eric Chase Foundation, ericchasefoundation.org. 100% of the proceeds go towards exposing the cartels and will hopefully save families the heartache of losing a child, a mother, a father, a sibling. The list goes on. Every week, the top donors will get a signed copy of my book, Wake Up America, as a thank you for your support. Thanks so much to each and every one of you who donated so far. It takes all of us to end this epidemic.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America. United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America strong. City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand America. United we stand. We stand America. United we stand.
So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised.
All right, let's bring in our special panel. University of Maryland lecturer Dr. Jason Nichols, columnist for The Hill and co-chair of Women for Trump, Madison Gisoto, Sinclair political commentator Amisha Cross, and member of the President's National Security Education Board, host of America First on Salem Radio, and Sinclair media contributor Dr. Sebastian Gorka. I'm going to bring in Madison, new to the show. Welcome. Always good to have you on the show. We've worked together for many, many years. Madison, you watched the debate. I saw you tweeting while I was tweeting as well. What was going on between moderator Chris Wallace and President Trump? What's your assessment?
Well, as the president tweeted out following the debate, it seemed like it was a 2-on-1 last night. It was a little disappointing to see Chris Wallace, I think, jump in at multiple points and give commentary instead of staying neutral and being that moderator that he was put in place in this debate to be. So that was a little disappointing. But, you know, being on the campaign trail across the country and right here in the state of Ohio last week on the Trump bus tour, you know, there was a lot of topics mentioned last night that were major concerns for people here in the state of Ohio, across the Midwest, and across the country. And I don't think Biden really answered adequately or really gave answers at all to some of these questions, including packing the court and others.
You know, that was another moment. Jason, I want to stay on this for a minute. Chris Wallace, the moderator, had said he wanted to be invisible. Do you think he was invisible this week?
Well, I think it was impossible to be invisible because President Trump would not stick to the rules of the debate. It was frustrating to watch. I think both guys went low in it, but definitely President Trump went lower. Chris Wallace was about as objective as he possibly could. He tried to actually have a civil debate, which was impossible when people are acting like petulant children. So I think it was difficult to watch. I think President Trump did himself no favors last night. I thought if he could dial it in, he could actually reach out to suburban women, which is basically the coveted demographic in this election. He did himself no favors, did not do a good job in controlling himself and cutting his opponent off. I think you're going to see reflected in the polls that he did not go up even a bit and may have even gone down.
What do you say, Sebastian?
Yeah, clearly Jason is living in an alternate universe and watched another debate. The president went lower than Biden. I don't remember the president calling the former vice president a liar and a clown. And that's what Beijing Biden did. Yesterday was a brawl. It reminds me of the first Hillary-Trump debate. The needle didn't move in either direction for anybody yesterday. And Wallace was a disgrace. As a former Fox News contributor, the idea that this person wanted to be invisible and unbiased, he brought up the lie about Charlottesville again and then forced the president to disavow white supremacists that he did 3 years ago and has done ever since that. Then the whole thing was a disaster, in my opinion.
And Amisha, before I get to you, I just want control. Let's we're talking about the lack of respect between these two candidates. And at one point, as Sebastian points out, called President Trump a clown. He also called him a racist. And then there's this control. Roll that soundbite.
Radical left. Will you shut up, man? Listen, who is?
So Amisha, that was a problem. I'm watching that. This is the commander-in-chief. The world is watching, not just Americans. The world's watching. For the vice president to call the commander-in-chief, tell him, shut up, man. I found that highly disrespectful.
It was something that, honestly, a lot of people were feeling when they watched it. Donald Trump had, to my count, disrupted Joe Biden when he was trying to respond to questions at least 40 times. We have to remember that civility is not something that Donald Trump has within his character. He had asked for a urine test. He had asked for a drug test from Joe Biden before the debate even started. He had castigated him and his son and has been doing that for over a year now. So I think that, last night was met with, I would say, a lot more lax on Biden's side in accordance with the fire and the pressure that was coming from Donald Trump, who didn't come there to debate. He came there to be a thorn in the side. He came there to not really answer questions. He came there to stoke his base. This was not about expanding his base, and it wasn't about answering the questions that the American people want to hear the most. Even on a topic I personally thought that Donald Trump could actually lean in on when he was talking about the economy. Instead, he shifted that around to start talking about policing and to start, again, pushing some of his, what is considered by many people of color, racist rhetoric. And I just felt like that debate was not worth anyone's time because no one really got much out of it.
There was one interchange that, for me, it defined the difference between Biden and Trump. Control, roll the soundbite about opening schools and football. Listen.
Give me a break.
Because you know what? People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives.
People
They'll
want
be
to
careful,
be safe.
but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football.
And so that last part of it was about Big Ten football. Madison, let's talk about it. So the left wants to keep the economy closed, keep people in their homes. Trump on the right, we're looking at Florida, we're looking at Tennessee opening things back up. Did that not define it for you? And who's right on this one?
Well, I mentioned earlier about being in the state of Ohio and talking to people on the ground, and one of their concerns, of course, being the reopening of the economy and needing the full reopening here in the state of Ohio, which they haven't seen yet. Many businesses will never reopen as a result of this, and some are right there on the brink of, having to close down because they can no longer function, especially restaurants at this small capacity. When it's getting cold here in the state of Ohio, they're not going to be able to use those outdoor patios anymore. So they're very, very concerned. Of course, people in Ohio were excited to see the restart of football coming very soon. We live in Big Ten country. I'm a Buckeye myself. So that's great. But, hearing the two stark different viewpoints on moving forward with the coronavirus and President Trump wanting to reopen safely and Biden, saying on multiple occasions that he will consider shutting down again, I think that really is that difference that you're talking about that people were looking to see in this debate last night.
All right, let's keep it real tight, guys. I'm running out of time. Jason, your thoughts? Big Ten football, a lot of swing states are involved in Big Ten football. Is Trump right?
Well, I'm a Big Ten guy myself at the University of Maryland. Of course, I love football very much, but I love safety and health more. I think what Joe Biden was trying to show is that there have been a lot of failures by this president when it comes to the coronavirus. As a matter of fact, if he had shut things down even a week earlier, when he obviously knew, and we have him on video saying that he knew this was airborne, he had all of the facts. But yet he did not shut things down. He would have saved 36,000 lives. If he had shut it down 2 weeks earlier, he would have saved 54,000 lives. So this is a failure on behalf of the president. He's also done nothing for those businesses.
Let me get to, Jason, I apologize. I want to get to Sebastian and Amisha quickly. Sebastian?
I'm just blown away by Jason's propaganda. In January 31st, the president shut down travel from China to the United States, saving probably millions of lives. Sleepy, creepy Joe Biden said that was hysterical and xenophobic. Let's stay in the real world, please. The president's response saved lives.
Okay, Amisha, final word.
Well, I'm an SEC person, not a Big Ten person, but I do think that when we're talking about President Trump and his response to coronavirus, it's in the pudding. We've seen the amount of deaths, we've seen the amount of COVID spread, we're even seeing COVID spread amongst athletes. And Jason's right. The president knew about this, meanwhile went out and told the American public an entirely different story. Told us all it would be gone by Easter.
All right.
We know that that's not true. He's just been lying, and he did a lot more lying last night.
You know, I hate to say this, but SEC's open too, and guess what? Clemson's still number one, guys. Going to have to leave it right there. Jason, Madison, Amisha, and Sebastian, thank you, guys. Coming up on America This Week, he's the former Tennessee Attorney General and a Democrat. Why his ideas on stacking the Supreme Court may surprise you.
America, one nation, from Florida to St. Louis to Seattle. America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, delivers facts, not falsehoods.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to clear some of it up.
Hard-edged opinions.
We can no longer rely on China to be the primary producer of so many critical products that we need at a time of crisis.
Tough topic debates.
Has the mainstream media vetted Joe Biden the way they vetted others on the right?
I just believe that all women have the right to speak their truth and that those truths should also be investigated. The end, regardless of what political party they are a part of.
America This Week reveals the topics and issues that pulse throughout America. Fighting COVID-19.
We're working with every single state to be able to detect outbreaks before they spread into the community.
And the path forward.
Getting back to some degree of normality, that will come. We will get over this.
America This Week investigates chaos at the southern border.
Go, 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 go.
The poisoning of America.
It's in the soils, it's in the water, and it's in our blood.
Toxic chemicals linked to multiple cancers found in towns across America.
We were poisoned, and we are still poisoned.
Almost every day, there is a new community that is finding out that their water is contaminated.
America This Week relentlessly seeks the truth on your behalf.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week. Following President Trump's nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, there's a lot of talk from the left on packing the court by adding additional justices. Paul Summers is a former Attorney General of Tennessee and a member of the Federalist Society and a Democrat. Sir, you say don't pack the court. Is that right?
We say don't pack the court is exactly right.
Well, the left says if President Trump pushes through Amy Coney Barrett, you're going to get the right is going to get the Supreme Court 6-3, so therefore they want to pack it so they can get an even margin. What's your argument against doing that? To fellow Democrats.
To fellow Democrats, to Republicans, to independents, it makes no difference. The concept of keeping the Supreme Court at 9 was a concept that was here a long time before the untimely death a couple of weeks ago almost of Justice Ginsburg. We were working on the coalition to preserve the independence of the Supreme Court well in advance of her death. The fact that there is a potential, that there is an appointment and a potential confirmation is of no consequence to the movement to keep 9 on the Supreme Court. Let me tell you why, if I may. A bipartisan, nonpartisan group of former attorneys general have gotten together and we have proposed an amendment that's 13 words long to the Constitution. It says the Supreme Court of the United States shall be composed of 9 justices. Currently, and since the Constitution was created in 1789, the Supreme Court's number is silent in the Constitution. In other words, it doesn't set it at 9. Now, it has been 9 since 1869, but it can change by a vote of the House, a positive vote of the Senate, and the signature of the president, just like any other bill. We feel like if you start packing the court with people of the same ideology that you have, then that's going to hurt the court in 3 different ways. Number one, it will denigrate the independence of the Supreme Court. Number two, it will clearly denigrate the rule of law, that is, that all men and women are created equal. And number three, it will undermine the checks and balances of abuse of power of the other 2 branches. So therefore, we support keeping the number of members of the Supreme Court.
I tell you what, Mr. Summers, I got to go. I ran out of time, but I support you for supporting that. Keep 9, folks. Going to leave it right there. Paul Summers, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Remember, if you never want to miss an episode of America This Week, just set your DVR. We have a complete list of times and cities on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/America Bowling, all one word. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search for America This Week. You can find our shows and key interviews right there.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, America. United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand, America. United we stand. We stand, American strong. City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time. We stand America. United we stand. We stand America. United we stand.
Don't forget, next Friday, October 9th, I'll be hosting a 1-hour special America This Week town hall with President Trump from Miami. It'll be an event you won't see anywhere else, focusing on the key battleground states. Go to your Sinclair station's website for all the details on how to watch and participate. America This Week has reached out to the Biden-Harris campaign to offer up a similar event. We'll keep you posted on that as well. Thanks for joining me for another great episode of America This Week. Have a great night, everybody. Let's welcome back to the show White House Trade Advisor Peter Navarro. Peter, thank you for joining us. You know, I watched the debate this week, and I heard Vice President Biden call his commander-in-chief derisively a clown, a racist, and told him to shut up. As a U.S. trade advisor, what does that do to you when you go try and negotiate with foreign countries? Let's say Russia, let's say China, let's say even hostile countries in the Middle East.
Nothing, because all of those leaders have met Joe Biden. They know he is the real clown. So I don't really worry about that. The debate for me was interesting. The first thing, it was very clear right out of the gate that President Trump was debating two people. You know the boxing term cut man. Chris Wallace effectively was Joe Biden's cut man, as well as the other stealth debater. I thought that performance, I mean, he needs to finally drop the act at Fox and go over to MSNBC, where he'll be most welcome. But, I mean, if you listen to the signal rather than drown out the noise of that debate, there was very clear policy differences between the two candidates that actually got out if you listen to that signal. I mean, for example, the Supreme Court, very clearly, President Trump has both the constitutional authority and moral responsibility to nominate a justice. He did that. Biden refuses to provide any kind of list of who he would nominate, so that was pretty clear. On the China virus issue, you draw the two candidates. President Trump really called Biden out on his failure with H1N1 in 2009. Biden's own chief of staff said they made every mistake in the book. And also, President Trump noted that Biden would have not pulled down those China flights on January 31st. That saved millions of American lives when the president did, and Biden called him a xenophobe. So that was clear. We got Biden flushed out on the Green New Deal and the $100 trillion that it's going to cost us. I mean, we saw that fairly clearly. On race relations, it's interesting to me that the president noted back in the 90s how Joe Biden was responsible for a legislation that incarcerated black men, and President Trump was the one who passed the reform bill. And the funnest thing, Eric, the poll this morning, or the poll I saw about the debate, Telemundo had it 2-to-1 Trump, and that's a key demographic for the president. So I think the debate was a good night for the president, a bad night for Chris Wallace, and a horrible night for Sleepy Joe.
You know, Peter, let's talk about that race exchange for a while. They hovered over the topic. It was about law and order. I think President Trump was landing some solid blows on Vice President Biden for a while. And then Biden said something like, Antifa is an ideology, not a group. That created a lot of, Twitter commotion. And Wallace stepped in and asked President Trump if he was ready to denounce white supremacists. And Trump said something like, Proud Boys, step back and watch, rather than denouncing them. You know, it felt to me like there was an opportunity for President Trump to step up and denounce the white supremacists, but he didn't. So what's the, you're on the grounds of the White House right there. What's the scuttlebutt about that?
See, I see that totally different. I thought that Chris Wallace did a tremendous disservice at that point, because what he did was he asked him the question, and then President Trump, right off the bat, said that he didn't approve of that. But Wallace interrupted him before he could even get that out of his mouth, and just kept hectoring him and coming back. So I thought that exchange was one of the most unfair of Wallace. The president has made clear his views on that. The other was, when they came up for the topic of the economy, what did Wallace do? He slips in the question about the president's tax returns. It had nothing to do with the subject at all. And if Wallace had then also confronted Biden, for example, on Hunter Biden, maybe that would have been okay. But look, at the end of the day, we saw a dominant president and a befuddled former vice president go at it. I think that it was unfortunate that Wallace was sitting at that table. I think it would have been a very different debate if we had somebody there who was fair and balanced.
Do you think Chris
like
Wallace?
News,
do you think Chris Wallace was biased in favor of Vice President Biden?
Oh, are you kidding me? Yes. I mean, the interruptions, I think it's 76-15, Trump versus Biden. But it was just, you know what a cut man is, Eric?
I do.
That's the guy when
I do.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Wallace was Joe Biden's cut man, and Joe Biden was getting cut all night. And every time the president threw a punch that caught him right in the jaw, Wallace was there to intercept the punch or to lessen the blow or to heal the cut. I mean, it was, look, I knew going in that this would be tough because Wallace was going to be the second debater. And I think Wallace, kind of the Freudian slip there was when he talked about exchanging places on the stage with the president, because Wallace has always had those kind of political ambitions. I mean, he belongs over at MSNBC.